For more on the story and more on regional activity as well, the events of this last week, we're joined in the studio by Ruth Wasserman Lande, former Israeli deputy ambassador to Egypt and general regional political analyst. Thanks for being with us here, Ruth.
Lovely
I know you're
to be here again.
Heavily involved in the region, I know, still since your days with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here. But I want to start backing up just a moment here, looking at the unrest we've dealt with in Jerusalem this last week. And a new factor that came into play was the sort of comments from the United Arab Emirates, clearly concerned, issuing comments about reducing the tensions. If you could speak to the role, we know how important Jerusalem appears to be in the region, but from the Emirati perspective, how do they see Jerusalem and perhaps their role in it, or what would they like their role to be, as far as we can tell?
So I think that the underlying or key word in the whole issue is stability. There is, or there was, let's say, until I would say perhaps yesterday, quite a growing concern amidst Israelis and others in the region that the whole Jerusalem upheaval, let's say, stopping people from going up the stairs, sitting on the stairs, trying to crowd around the entrance of the opening of the mosque. The whole upheaval and the lack of stability was beginning to get a little bit out of hand. And Jerusalem is so very sensitive in the Islamic world in general. And of course, in the month of Ramadan, when everything is more sensitive, holy, there was a growing concern. I think that was the context in which this statement, rather unusual, was being made. Please stop.
Yes.
Think. This could get out of hand.
It was a fairly neutral statement, calling for reduced tensions, I think.
It was a fairly neutral statement, but it certainly was not misunderstood. Friends, stop, think, make sure things do not get out of hand, because it's just there. And it really could, like wildfire in a forest, get completely out of hand in no time.
Do they have influence? Do the Emirates have influence? Say the Jordanians, we believe, have some influence on maybe behavior around the old city. We know the Saudis would like to have more influence. That's been something reportedly floated to Saudi Arabia as maybe a way to entice more open ties. How much do the Emirates want to be involved in Jerusalem? I
think that whether they do want or they do not want, the centrality of Jerusalem for the Muslim world and it being an Islamic country is something that is almost inevitable. They need to show the concern. They are indeed concerned. And the question is, do they want to make it a little bit less neutral sounding? No. There is a growing, let's say, friendship, a beginning. The UAE has an interest in showing that it will lead the way peace in the region can be made, with normalization, with warm relations, and so on. It put itself right out there in that sense, making very big statements, making it very public. That's not to say that every single person in the UAE believes in it, but publicly it's been made very, very legitimate, and therefore it has almost a vested interest, a stake in it being okay. And if Jerusalem goes up in flames, it's no longer okay. Therefore, guys, stop for a second, really take note. This is quickly getting out of hand. Let's calm things down. That was the purpose of the statement, really.
Somewhat appreciated notion, no doubt. Certainly a place, as you mentioned, is a flashpoint. It can get out of control at so many moments we've seen.
Very quickly.
But looking at the Palestinians and the prospect of elections here now that have been built up for all these months, now seemingly crashing down, with the blame being put on Jerusalem, essentially, on issues around Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, but once again, bringing Jerusalem into focus. How is this issue of the Palestinian elections being looked at from the UAE?
Well, the word Jerusalem does happen to be in this equation, but it's totally not Jerusalem. I think everybody knows that. Even I would very much doubt that one Palestinian, whether in Gaza or the West Bank, really believes that it's the issue of East Jerusalem, Jerusalemites not being able to vote. There was a kind of a gesture made by Abu Mazen toward the new American administration, the Biden administration. Look,
like
here we are liberal, we are making a statement, at least, about wanting to have elections. It was quite playing with fire, almost like the whole issue of Jerusalem getting out of hand. And it did seem that if nothing else would help, they could always say, Israel does not allow the East Jerusalemites to vote, and therefore we have to sort of climb down from this very presumptuous undertaking, fearing that either the FATAH, I would say candidates, if you can call them that, would gain more power than Abu Mazen would want to see, and or, of course, Hamas. And no regional player that is of relevance, let's say, in the Gulf, for example, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Jordan, etc., would not really want to see Hamas taking power.
Thanks for adding some clarity to the situation for us, and certainly as a UAE is seemingly increasingly involved with the region. Ruth Wasserman Lande, thank you.
Thank you so much.